Michigan. Welcome to Meet Her. This is the podcast where we highlight all of the amazing women in Michigan, disrupting tech, leading teams, and just doing some amazing work. My name is Jen Wengler, and I am your host. I'm the Vice President of Technology for The Right Place. I also lead a local industry council called the Technology Council of West Michigan. And man, am I excited about my guest today. The Julie Holton Smith is with me today, and she is the founder and principal of a company called MConnexus. She's also the host of a podcast called Expert Connexus, which I've had the pleasure of being on. Julie, thank you for joining us.
I'm so glad to be here. This is exciting. Thanks, Jen.
So you have had such a remarkable career. And I think if I'm trying to remember, you and I met about a year ago when you were launching an AI roadmap thing in Lansing. And fast forward to today, I mean, that has taken off in Grand Rapids, all because of you and your initial idea. So thank you. But talk a little bit more about your career in Julie. Who's Julie?
That is a good question. I mean, talking about AI kind of reminds me it's always changing. I mean, who we are and the new projects that come up and the things that we're able to do, especially when we have incredible communities like Lansing and Grand Rapids to get on board and the talent we have in those communities. So I own M Connections Marketing Agency. I also am the co-director of Startup Grind Lansing. I'm the SAP for Entrepreneurs Organization West Michigan. A lot of different titles and roles, but all really going back to this passion that I know you share for helping businesses, specifically helping women when possible, helping women in tech and entrepreneurs in general who are just looking to make their community is a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a lot that we can talk about, and there's a lot of different things that you're doing. But what projects are the most exciting for you today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get the most fired up when I am able to see how my talents or my team's talents are able to help someone else who has this big goal, this big idea of growth.
Yeah.
And we can take what we know and help them to expand their work even further. So I get really excited about startups. I get really excited about people who want to change the world, but they maybe don't know, they're either stuck or they don't know what that step is that they need to take to start moving their idea forward.
Yeah.
And that's when I really like to come in and see how can we bolster that? How can we amplify what they're doing and help connect them to the resources that are going to make that world-changing idea a reality?
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, let's go there. You started off in a very traditional production studio, right? And even as a TV host, if I'm
So actually I was never on camera, even though I have a YouTube show now and a podcast and all these things on camera. It's actually not my comfort zone. I'm still working on it. I'm sure you can relate to that somewhat with a podcast.
Yeah.
I was behind the scenes. So as that little girl, picture that little girl in her mom's, high heels that were 2 times too big for her, the nice little pea coat walking around telling the news stories of the neighborhood. That was me. I was this creative young child who wanted to be a journalist, wanted to tell stories, and that's how I started my career. I started working for the local newspaper when I was in high school. Worked weekends working for the newspaper. From there, went to college, discovered that instead of being on camera, because I wanted to end up in TV, I was really bossy, which comes in really handy. That leadership bossiness comes in really handy behind the scenes. So I became a producer and went on to work in a variety of markets for about 12 years. Worked my way up, became an executive producer.
Won an Emmy.
Won 3 Emmys.
Yeah, 3 Emmys. Oh my gosh.
Won a few awards along the way.
Yeah.
And all because at the heart of it, I love telling stories to make people's lives better, stories to help communities. Just so many different types of stories. It was always about the storytelling.
Yeah. Well, and the way that we tell stories is so different today than when you started, right? So can you talk about that journey and just kind of having to learn new ways going from, in studio production to YouTube, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing is, yes, I think for the world, the way we tell stories has changed. But really, we're telling stories now in a way that works in TV news.
Sure.
So what we were doing in TV news, or what I was doing years ago, is now more relatable for people who have video podcasts, who have Zoom meetings, who startups that are pitching to investors on Zoom. So all of those things that I learned through news, all of a sudden during COVID, my operations manager actually said to me, like, wait a minute, Julie, your background in news, maybe it led to this.
Yeah.
You're able to now connect with people from your living room with a TV show that is helping businesses learn how to navigate COVID and the changes that resulted business-wise, all the rules and regulations, the legal changes. And so I think a lot of it ties back. I mean, of course, the technology has changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't, 20 years ago, we didn't have laptops with cameras and this whole setup. Essentially people have this kind of setup at home now or a version of this at home.
Right.
So it's really it's taken the TV studio kind of idea and put it into every household.
Yeah.
And now people are learning to tell their stories much in the way that TV news has always been telling stories.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's an art in and of itself, right? Being able to tell a story in the way that people want to hear it, right? Finding your voice.
Yeah.
And you've done that so masterfully. So tell me a little bit more about your work with startups. How are you inspiring them to tell their stories and get started?
Yeah, when it comes to storytelling itself, I think that is one of the most crucial skills for someone to learn, whether they are an entrepreneur or assisting an entrepreneur, any role within a business. And for startups, it all comes down to, there are a lot of different complicated templates on how to tell your story and what pieces to include or not include. And that all has a place.
Yeah.
But I think it all boils down to one thing. Why? Why should people care? We used to say that in news. If a reporter was pitching a story to me, the number one question I would ask is, why do I care?
Yeah.
If I am so-and-so at home and I've had a busy day and I'm trying to get the kids' stuff ready for school and make sure their homework's done and the chaos of life and work, why is this story a story I need to hear tonight? Is that enough to pull my attention away? And so for startups, for instance, what is it about your startup that is going to persuade whoever you're talking to care?
Sure.
Whether it's an investor, there might be a different why for the investor, whether it's the end client or consumer or whoever you're talking to, a potential vendor.
Yeah.
Why do they care? Why should they support you in whatever it is that you're seeking support for? And then from there, you start to build in the elements of your story, not based on what you know about your story.
Yeah.
It becomes their story and why it matters to them.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I feel like it's a bit of a TED Talk start, right? Like they always start with interesting thing that draws people in. So tell me a little bit more. You moved away from Grand Rapids. You started here. You moved away for a number of years, and then you came back. I mean, what drew you back?
Yeah, I used to joke it was the Tim Allen ads, right? Like you couldn't go anywhere without hearing his beautiful voice talking about how wonderful Michigan is.
Here in Michigan, yes.
Right? But it's true. I think when I left college, I was ready to conquer the world. I mean, I moved from college down to Richmond, Virginia, didn't know anyone there, had never lived in the South before. Yeah. Total culture change. From there to Minnesota, where I lived in Minneapolis and loved the Twin Cities, and then to Indianapolis. And so I moved around, and after about 12 years, I was looking to make that change in my career. And really for me personally, it was the balance that had been missing. Looking big picture of life, what do I want? And at the top of my list was family, being near family, having a community that when I decide how to pour back into my community, it's really my community.
Sure.
And there really was no choice other than Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at, of course, covering the news while I was gone and seeing all of the developments and all of the opportunity. Yeah. The opportunities in Michigan really drew me back. My family being near here drew me back. We really, we can't say it enough. We live in such a great place. Yeah. And I would say about the Grand Rapids and Lansing communities, when I launched my company, M Connections, about almost 8 years ago, I had the opportunity then. I was living in Lansing at the time, and I thought, okay, I can go anywhere in the state.
Yeah.
And I really spent time thinking about it. And what I realized was Lansing and Grand Rapids, where I do most of my work, we have such an incredible community as far as pouring support into entrepreneurs.
Philanthropic.
I have not felt that anywhere else but in this region.
Interesting.
So to live in a place where I can go back and forth a short hour distance away from these two great, entrepreneurial hubs and tech hubs, it just was a no-brainer. You go where the support is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get geeky, okay?
Okay.
Let's talk tech, because I know that you have a lot of speakers on your podcast and are always talking about AI.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit about some of the things we've done here in West Michigan. So, I mean, where to start, right? There's so many different angles, but out of all of the podcasts that you've done around AI, which one or which ones have excited you the most?
Oh my gosh. What excites me the most is the most basic form of AI, where suddenly we are giving everyone who has a computer and the internet access to the smartest tool possible. I think for every single individual, no matter what your job is, whether it's in tech, whether it's completely unrelated, you're not on a computer during the day.
Yeah.
When you can go to a computer and ask questions of ChatGPT, when you can log into different platforms, perhaps using ChatGPT or other language learning, you're able to access all of this information. It levels the playing field.
Yeah.
Here's an example. My husband and I have a 17-year-old with disabilities. And I really feel like AI, when Colin logs into ChatGPT, he can suddenly ask any questions he wants and get positive answers and answers that are good and answers that, maybe he'd be too embarrassed to ask otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think for whether it's the disabilities world, whether it's for just everyday workers, it really levels the playing field of being able to not replace jobs, but to supplement the workers who are already doing the work.
Yes, right. To enhance kind of our own skills and skill abilities. I had a guest on one time. We were talking about the fact that she had ADHD. And so white papers really, really scared her. And so AI has helped her kind of start with a concept and then put her own perspective and view on that. So
yeah, I look at AI too as, when we look at Michigan and the ups and downs we've had across various industries, whether it's the automobile industry, for instance, and we saw what changes within that industry, what it did to our communities when jobs were lost or moved around. And so I look at something like AI and I think, okay, this is our opportunity in Michigan to make sure that we don't fall behind the rest of the world in leveling up our workforce and being able to streamline operations and help our workers become more efficient, help give our employees more work-life balance. There's one client that I'm working with here out of Grand Rapids, and when we first started working with them on an AI project, I remember the owner said, I'm not looking to eliminate any of my employees. But if I can give them even an hour back every day, if I can give them an hour more to spend with their families and help, and that just really took me.
I love that.
It really resonates that we just want to make people's lives better.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the potential is there to do.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and you hit on it so beautifully, but, making that transition from, what we know and seeing a problem and trying to solve it and then trying to decide where AI or any other tool is going to come in and complement that. It really is a process. And so I've watched what you've done over the past few years with your businesses. But it's not all sunshine, right? When we
definitely not.
when we decide to walk a different path and do that. So for all of our young soon-to-be entrepreneurs or those women that are working in fields and thinking about their second curve, I mean, what inspired you to start the many things that you have? And, what landmarks have you come across and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest obstacles that we often put in front of ourselves as women especially is this idea that we have to be really good at something before we pursue it.
Sure.
We have to be the best.
Sure.
I remember when I was first launching M Connections, this idea was planted of, well, aren't there enough marketing agencies?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, gosh, if every potential entrepreneur had that thought, we would never have a new business.
Yeah.
Because so many businesses already exist.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be perfect before we just set out and start doing something. Yeah. We have to start doing it in order to learn if we like it, to get better at it, to decide if it leads to the next path. Maybe it's a yes for right now, but it's not the forever yes.
I love it.
There are just so many things that we miss out on if we hold ourselves back from pursuing them.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's why I have so many things on my plate, so many different things that I'm doing. I've called the last couple of years my years of discovery of, okay, I'm going to try a little bit of this, try a little bit of that.
I like the word pilot.
Right? Yeah, pilot. I'm going to pilot all of these projects and see which one sticks.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we figure out what we even enjoy in life and how to have that perfect combination of passion for what we're doing and the financial profit that we need to live our lives.
Absolutely. Well, and just by seeing other people do it. So I think just by seeing you and what you're doing with your podcast, it's inspirational, right? And other people are like, yeah, I want to do that. And I want to tell that story. And but you're giving people a voice to talk about, their passion and their stories. And I love that. So,
well, that's the fun part. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And there's something that we can all learn from other people's stories.
Yeah.
That's really what drives me to continue the podcast and continue doing this, because the lessons I've learned in business, the lessons you've learned in business, when we share those, we are impacting people.
Yeah.
During COVID, the YouTube show Now, we launched during COVID. It started as a way to help businesses navigate all of the changes.
Yeah.
Because suddenly my clients were calling me not just with marketing questions, but with, questions about loans and questions I couldn't answer, but I had other people in my network that could.
Yeah.
And so that's how this all started. But then kind of after COVID, we realized, well, wait a minute, we have this whole audience that still wants to know how to scale, how to move forward, how to make changes, how to navigate AI, for instance. And so that's why the then TV show Now is on YouTube, because we can reach more people.
Yeah.
And if we're impacting even one person, then job well done is how we look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Are most of your clients in Michigan, in kind of Western Lansing, Michigan, or
we have clients all over. Okay. So I would say the majority of our clients are in Grand Rapids and Lansing. Okay. But we also have clients all across the country. We have clients in Silicon Valley, the Northwest, Chicago, New York. So really all over the place.
And are most of them startups? So would you say early stage, mid-market, all over the place?
No, all over the place.
Okay.
So we do work with a lot of startups, but we also work with businesses. Our focus is growth.
Gotcha.
So any organization, business or otherwise, that's looking to grow, those are the strategies that we really focus on.
Okay. So thinking about the companies that you're working with today, I mean, what are the top 2 challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, some of them are facing changes in their market. Mm-hmm. Their target clients are not spending the same amount of time in the same places where they used to, online, for instance. So a lot of changes in social media and email marketing. AI is making a lot of changes in the marketplace. Of course, with recent elections, a lot of people are making spending decisions one way or another. We always see that with elections. Yeah. And so I think there's just a lot of challenges looking at how do I reach the right audience in the right places.
Yeah, efficiently, right?
Exactly.
And are you seeing, from my perspective, technology is moving so fast that companies are struggling with being able to implement fast enough before the next edition is upon them. So growing through kind of acquisition, right? Mm-hmm. Acquiring that talent to do that technology or growing it internally. Do you see that struggle happening? And what are your thoughts?
I do. I mean, I think you nailed it. It's happening. And businesses of all sizes too, right?
Yeah.
I think the sense that I get, I think some of the smaller businesses are struggling more. I think there's a lot of fear that the workforce, that they're not able to afford the workforce that they once were able to afford.
Yeah.
And with the changes in technology, a small business that's already struggling might be kind of thinking that it's too difficult to make those changes in technology or to bring on the experts to help them and that sort of thing. So I think that's where we need to spend time is really, I mean, we are so, our small businesses are so important to our economy.
Yeah.
And so making sure that they have the resources to be able to, and the knowledge, the opportunity to really connect and learn to grow. So whether that looks like technology resource centers or AI innovation centers where people can come in and have costs covered and be able to learn that maybe this technology that they need isn't as far out of reach as they think it is.
Right.
I think that's a lot of it is the education. I'm a big, as you know, I'm a big proponent of the education because it is not, I mean, if I can work AI, then, I'm the storyteller. So if I can use these tools, then anyone can use these tools. They just need to have access to the right people to show them how.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the education and the network, right? It's like that old adage, not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Type of thing. So what's next for Julie?
Oh my gosh, what that's a great question. I'm really excited about some of the things that we are working on right now. It is a combination of AI projects, of working with businesses. A lot coming up in the new year. We have a founders retreat that we do each year with Flying with Founders. So that'll be down in El Salvador in January.
Oh my God, tell me more about that.
Oh my gosh,
that sounds so cool.
It's amazing. So led by Ruben Levinson, who's my co-director with Startup Grind Lansing. Last year was the first one. So he has a fun podcast called Flying with Founders.
I've seen that.
Founders that want to tell their story in an airplane, connect with Ruben. It's incredible. But then part of this business is putting on founders retreats where we can take the founder out of that comfortable, familiar environment, out of the office and into some place where they have likely never been. Last year was Costa Rica, where we spent several days with a volcano in our backyard. And then the next half was on this beautiful beachfront, which was amazing. I did not want to come back.
Oh, gosh.
This year, who knows what amazingness is in store, but it'll be in El Salvador. So just an incredible time to be able to connect, be vulnerable, to share your challenges, and connect with other people who not only might be facing those same challenges, maybe they've gone through them already. And can share the insights that help them get through.
That's good. How do people find out about that?
You can head to waadvisors.com. Look up Washington Avenue Advisors.
Yeah, we'll tag it in the link.
Okay,
yeah. For sure.
And
what types of early stage founders all across the board?
Yeah, early stage, all across the board. Early stage founders, those maybe seeking capital, and the supporters who work with them. So I'm not a founder seeking capital. I don't fit that mix, but a lot of the work I do supports founders. So also investors. We have a number of investors on the list. Last year was really interesting. It was a really neat experience because two of the startups that were there, some of their investors were also there. So it was a really unique opportunity for them to be able to connect in a deeper way.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, I love those. I love the idea of getting out of your own environment too, right? Just different perspective, time to think.
Exactly.
All right, Julie, I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Favorite book?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard one. Favorite book? I admittedly have multiple bookshelves full of books that I haven't read yet. I acquire a lot of books and then don't open them. I think that's a serial entrepreneurship problem.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But I am currently, I just started reading a book. I'm not going to remember the name or title, but I can send it to you.
Okay.
But it is a psychology book. And so part of it is looking into mindset, looking into why we work the way we work, and how to kind of work around who we are and who we want to be.
Yeah.
So I end up liking a lot of, not just business books, I have a lot of those too.
Yeah.
But looking at the psychology of how we work, how our clients work, how people in general work.
I love that. So, well, I have one that you'll like. It's called Scaling the Soul. And the author's name is Sharon Gilwater. But anyways, she unicorn in Silicon Valley, but no tech background. So I just loved her story.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, right up
too.
my alley.
Favorite podcast?
If not this one, then I really like, so I would plug my own, but that's okay. We'll put the links below, I'm sure. I really like listening to the All In podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I had the chance a couple years ago when they had their first All In Summit.
Yeah.
My husband and I went to that, and that was pretty great to go to. It was pretty fun.
Awesome.
But yeah, I like the differing perspectives from the besties. And my first startup is also, or my first million is also a great one that I love, or This Week in Startups. So some of my favorite entrepreneurial focused.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that one. I've not heard of that one. All right. And the last, I always like to ask is, what gives you joy?
Connecting with people.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part of anything I do.
Yeah.
Whether, in fact, my husband and I were just talking about this the other night because he's like, what is it about M Connections that you love, or the podcast, or, and it's connecting with people. It's being able to kind of share space and hear their story. And I think that's what life is meant to be. It's what it's all about, no matter what drives us or motivates us, just being able to connect.
Yeah. Well, Julie, you've been such an inspiration for me as I start my very nascent podcast myself. It's been wonderful watching you. You're such a bright light in Michigan for young entrepreneurs and startups. And so I look forward to watching you in the coming months, and I hope you'll come back.
Absolutely. Anytime. Excellent. I love watching you. So thank you for the stories that you're sharing and the women that I get to meet through your podcast.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you.